What's up, YouTube? How's everybody out there? All right, so I've had a long weekend. Let me see here. Make sure we have volume. Yes, we have volume. Hello, I'm Greg from Greg's Tutoring NYC. Hopefully everybody's doing out there. You got Monday and Tuesday left to plan out your last few days of strategy for your SHSAT. I would suggest anybody who could take off Tuesday to do so, either as a day of rest or at least in the morning to maybe wrap up some things that you're doing. I might do a stream for you guys on Tuesday afternoon as well, just to get a sense of where we're at, do some venting, work out some last minute strategies, things like that, okay? So we're up to part like 15 or so of this. We're going through the SHSAT handbook, the current one from 2020 to 2021, Form A. So we ripped apart the ELA Rev A, we ripped apart the ELA Rev B, we ripped apart the ELA Reading Comprehension. So I approached that differently than, in fact, I approached the whole ELA section differently than I have in all my past streams. The previous streams I opted for just trying to focus on answering the questions. This time we actually went into the passages, read them, ripped them to shreds, so you could see the process of what you're supposed to be going through and how you're approaching the passages. A lot of kids get caught up in reading it and not knowing how to interact with the questions versus the passages themselves. And then we're doing the ELA as well. So we did the reading comprehension. Now we're like maybe 3/4 of the way through the math. I'm going to try to make this about an hour. If I get a headache or my throat gives out, it's going to be less. Otherwise, we'll piggyback it off tomorrow. But I'm going to keep trying to go as far as I can today so I can drop. What I'm also going to do is go to problem number 65 at some point. Probably not today. And we're going to analyze that problem deeper. Because there's a specific question they ask you here. And given this illustration, there's probably 10 to 20 questions that they could have asked you that are intertwined into the actual answer of this question here. All right. I see a few people coming in here. Hello, welcome. Please say hi. So I wanted to try to be interactive and for you guys to guess the questions and ask any questions you have. If you have questions that are not about the particular question on the screen, pop it out there anyway. And when I get to it, I can. And when I get to it, maybe it'd be at the very end, okay? So we'll just play back and forth that way. If you're catching us the replay, of course, you can pause and then try to figure out the answer and then see if it matches what my answer is. Yeah, somebody just smashed that like button. That's a good way to do it. As well, if you guys need to email me about anything, don't hesitate to do that. I do tutor kids private one-to-one, so if anybody still needs a last-minute session, it's always worth it. It's always worth it, whether it's about a particular question, a particular topic, or just you want to do a couple of hours still in. I'm pretty much available 24/7 right now, so if you guys need that, go for it, okay? So let me try to find out which question we last were on, and then we'll just go forward from that. I think it was 94, but let me see when we get there. No, I think it was it 81? I think there was a cell phone question. 85, 89, 92, 93. Yeah, 93 was the last one. So we'll start with 94. Let me just give me 1 second to make sure the stream is still going. And I can bring the questions up on my phone. That seems a more handy way to do this. So again, I'm Greg from GregsTutoringNYC at gmail.com. If you guys need more links and so on, please, you can go to GregsTutoringNYC.com, and there's a whole bunch of links that I've categorized in various ways. That seems a more handy way to do this. All right, so I can run it live. I got a chat thing going here. Welcome. More people are joining in. So we're inching towards the end of this, at least certainly a Form A. We're going to also do the grade 9 questions at some point, although I did do them over the summer. But I don't mind doing them over again. So if you guys look back at my streams, maybe 5 months ago, I have August stuck in my head, but that might not be right. In any event, I'm going to do them a second time. I'm also going to do the grade 8 grid-ins, which I may have also done as well, which are found in the back of the SHSAT handbook. Some of you guys don't realize there's extra grid-in questions at the back of the SHSAT handbook. Okay. Also, if you look at my site, you can have links to all the past handbooks, or at least about a dozen of them, including other grid-ins. There is overlap in some of the questions, so there's repetition. But if you want a more variety of questions, especially since this is from the DOE, you know, many of you guys have Kaplan book, Barron's book, Princeton Review book, etc., Tutorverse. Those are all fine. But you know, it's also worth doing a practice test actually from the Department of Education, since that's where the source of a lot of this is coming from. All right. Nobody has any questions apparently, and nobody wants to say hi either. All right. So 94. Let me just shrink this down a little bit so we can get that showing on the screen. All right. In fact, let me bump it at one more. Let me see here. Yeah, that's good. We don't need the question number showing. All right. So when I get a math problem, I do two things. The first thing I do is look at the illustration. No matter where the illustration is, I just look at it. I also rip apart the sentences, one sentence at a time, and within a sentence, a phrase at a time. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Somebody's alive. Hello. Mr. Cucumber Eyebrows. You guys got great avatar names, great names. So I'm going to just look at it and try to make sense of it by itself, just so I'm understanding what they're even throwing at me. So I have a number line, cool. There's 3 points on it, X, Y, and Z, cool. X to Y is one unit, whatever that is. It might be inches. Y to Z is 1 unit as well. If I look at the whole thing together, so that's 3. Okay. This may or may not be helpful information to the problem. They often look for midpoints. So midpoint here might be half, right? And the midpoint of this is going to be 1. So it depends where we are. We don't know that X is 0. They might tell us that inside of here. They might tell us X is 99 for all we know. So I don't think there's anything more I can grok out of looking at this here. So let's start working on the thing here. On the number line above, cool. The distance between X and Y is 1 unit. So we know that already. It already showed us that graphically. So we're okay up to here. And the distance between Y and Z is 2 units. Okay, so the sentence up to right here confirmed everything I grokked visually. All right. Hello again. Hello. Welcome, everybody. What is the difference between Y right here and the midpoint of X and Z? So that's this. So the midpoint of X and Z is going to be about right here. About right there. So I'm just going to call that X prime, Z prime, for lack of a better name. That's that point right there. It's right smack in the middle. So if it's in the middle, okay, and the whole length was 3, that means this is at 1.5. All right? So they want to know the difference between Y and that point. So that we're looking for the distance right there. Right? So if Y is 1 and X prime, Z prime is 1.5, then the distance has to be a half. Right? Is everybody good with that? So this one was fairly trivial in a way. It does still require your attention to detail, and there is a little processing you have to do to try to understand kind of each step. I still had a grok that the whole thing was 3. I had a grok that X prime, Z prime was 1.5, right? And I still had to do the subtraction. And it's easy because you have this variable, that variable, that variable, and this new temporary one we had to create. So you had to keep track of 4 variables, right? And just plug it in back and forth. All right, so that one wasn't too bad. 94 was 95. Okay, 95 says, by what percent did the price of a cup of coffee increase if the price was increased from 125 to 135? So they're talking about dollar increases and percent increases. All right, so percent, when I have X percent, this means X over 100. Okay, so what we're trying to do is shoot for something that might be of this form. We don't know. Okay, we can also take any fraction, like 4 over 10, right? And we can make that into a percent. We all know that would be 40 hundredths, which is equal to 40%. So we can take any fraction and map it into a percent as well. So that might be what we need to do here. So we have 2 prices, 135 and 125. The difference between those prices is 10 cents. All right? So the price increase, it's the price increase from the 125, right? 135 is the end price. So it's the increase from the 125, right? Does everybody get that? Does anybody have any questions about that? Because that's kind of critical to see. So there's a couple ways to approach this once you understand that. One way is to just take the price difference and divide it by the original price. 10 cents over 1.25. Okay. And there's a couple ways to do that too. But if you look at it deeper, you know there's a mapping here. So we can move this decimal over twice, right? Or sorry, once. And we get 1 over 12.5. All right? And when we do the division, we're going to get 0.8. We're going to get 8 hundredths, right? Because we can make this X over 100 and do a cross product and then figure that out. When you do the division, you're going to get 8. So the answer is 8 hundredths is 8%. So the answer there would be B. Is everybody good on that? Okay, there's some repetition on the SHSAT as well. Is Brooklyn Tech a good school? Because I'm trying to go there. I went there and one of my children went there. I believe it's a wonderful, lovely school. Really, all the specialized high schools are fantastic. You really can't go wrong. All right? There's also other schools that are not specialized high schools that are great, like Townsend Harris, Bard Queens, Bard Manhattan, Eleanor Roosevelt, Millennium, Goldstein. The list, there's a whole pack of them. If anybody wants such a list, you can email me. I normally give to my private students a list of like the 50 schools that are kind of nice to go to. As far as his high school too, there's a whole bunch of them. Midwood and Brooklyn, there's a whole bunch. So, did you not ask that question yesterday? So what we're normally going to get is something like this. If we also notice, 97 is actually the same question. The price of a sandwich was raised, so it increased from $6.25 to $6.75. What was the percent increase? So it's going to work the same way. We have a difference here of 50 cents over the original price, $6.25. Okay. When you do that division, you still get 8. By the way, there's a weird thing going on here, which is that if I double the numerator, I get 1. And if I double the denominator, I get 12.5. Doesn't that look exactly like this question? Turns out this is really the same question in disguise. All right? So, like I said, the SHSAT normally doesn't have ugly math. So to do something like divide 12 into 1 or whatever, that does get ugly. So, but that's the least of the problems that you have on the SHSAT, is to do that division. Okay? All right, so 97 turns out to have the same answer. So is everybody cool on this thing? And let's just do this for 1 second, because sometimes the SHSAT handbook is not clear on what's happening. So let's go look at some of the answers here. Their explanations, because sometimes the explanation could be confusing. Now, the goal of the handbook when they give the answers is actually not to explain it to you. That sounds confusing, but their job is not to inform you of how to solve these problems. All right, so be cautious and careful with that. Is there going to be combination and permutation? Sure. Everyone, especially on the grade 9. Okay, so if you look at the explanation for 95 versus 97, it looks like they're talking about completely different things, but they're actually talking about the exact same thing. So new price minus original price, that's the same as this right here. Okay, and then original price here, that's the same as this 125 over here. All right, so this 97 looks like formal and a little robotic, and 95 looks like, oh, cool, this is being thought through. It's really the same solutions, just different ways to present it. All right, so that's 95 versus 97. In fact, isn't there's at least one combo problem on this test, I think, if I'm remembering it right. So let's do 96 then. Okay, let me shrink the screen down slightly. Let's see, will that work? Okay, so what we're going to do is just focus on the illustration first. They're presenting me an isosceles triangle. These are the same. So I'll put a tick and a tick. That means they're the same. I have a base that's different size, okay? And I have a height that's 12, okay? So what I might do is just play around with this. Like, what might the perimeter be? The perimeter is 26, the perimeter is 36, right? What might the area be? It's 1/2 b, this is the base, times the height. So the area of this triangle is 60. Okay, and I'm doing this in my head normally, and I'm just trying to zoom through it just to get an understanding of what the illustration is, and I'm kind of testing the illustration. I'm not so much trying to second guess what their question might be, but I'm just trying to understand, like, do I know enough about this? That kind of a thing. Okay, so now there's nothing much in the illustration. We don't know where they're going to go with this at all. I'm assuming for now it's just an area problem. It may not be. All right. So Rachel is cutting out pieces of cardboards to make a pyramid. Cool. I understand that. She will use a square piece for the base. Good. And identical triangular pieces for the sides. Good. Okay, so is she going to use this? Is she going to take the pieces like this, that there's a base, and each of these, so this is A, B, C, and D. So A should be congruent to B, which is congruent to C, is congruent to D, because they're all exactly the same triangle. Okay, and if I fold them up, if I take the vertexes here, 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 and I fold it up, I'm going to get a pyramid, right? A triangular pyramid. Right? If I fold it up, that's what I'm going to get out of that. Okay. So let's see if that's what's going to happen. The figure above shows the dimensions of the triangle for each side. So which side? The one up here they're talking about. And then we know the base is also going to be that. Okay. So our base is going to be 10 by 10. And the base here is that base right there. So that's that number there. And then each side is going to be 13. So the 3D shape is that this is 10 by 10, and this slant length is 13. Okay? The height from the vertex here to the middle of this here is 10 inches. Okay? And we're going to double check our units. That's inches, that's inches, that's inches, that's inches. Cool. We're good. And then it also tells us what is the total surface area and square inches. So we're good. Of the pyramid, including the square base. So what we have is when we look at the 3D shape, okay, the bottom, we're including that. So it's not a triangular pyramid with a hollow bottom. Okay? Right? Understand what they're talking about? The bottom actually is there. It's covered. So if you were to twirl it around, there's no holes in it. Okay? We don't know if it's solid or not. Wouldn't it be G? I think it's G, so let's see it. So what we have is we have 4 of these, right? Four times the area of the triangle plus the area of the square. So the area of the square is 10 by 10, so that's 100. Okay? The area of the triangle, we had already computed that when I was doing my fake sums. So let's just double check it. It's 10 times 12 is 120. Divided by 2 is 60. So we have 4 times 60. So that's 240 plus 100 gives us 340. So Mr. Cucumber is exactly right. Yeah. Oreo always gets the thing. Oreos are delicious. It's a great name to have. All right. So does anybody have any questions about that problem? It's kind of straightforward, but it's also still has a few steps to it. And if you don't really visualize this, and you don't really have to visualize it, but if you do, it's to your benefit, including the 3D representation of it. Right? So they never come out and say it's a 3D, triangular pyramid, but that's what it is. All right? And you should always default assume they're talking about a triangular pyramid anyway. Right? So is everybody good with that? Okay, we did 97. 98. So 98 is a classic SHSAT problem. In fact, it's on a lot of tests. So what they do is they give you a bunch of scores, a bunch of test exams. They give you some of them, and you have to kind of reverse out backwards through it. Okay? I see where people can get it wrong. Yeah. Well, that's the problem with all these. They're tricky. Attention to detail is so important. Okay? Cheryl played 5 computer games with the mean score, so that's average, which is going to be the sum of the numbers over the number of numbers. Okay, that's just your average, your normal plain old average. So he played 5 games with the mean score of 8. Okay. If his mean score for the first 4 games was 7 points per game, how many points was the score for the 5th game? Okay. So what we have to do is we're going to play games with this over here. So if he did 5 games with the average score of 8, that means his total points was 40. All right. And if we know the average point for the first 4 games was that means 4 times 7 is equal to 28. Okay. This is missing the 5th game here. This is all the games. This is 4 of them. Okay. So all we have to do is subtract the two of these. Okay, what do we get for that? 12. And that's the score of the extra game. And you can prove it because if 4 of the games are 7 each, again, that's 28. And we're trying to shoot for an average, right, to get the 40. So 28, 38, 39, 40, right? And if we divide the 40 by 5, we get the 8 back. So it all jives. It all makes sense. Okay, this is a classic standard problem. Okay, if you don't know how to solve it, look for these. They're all over the internet. They're also in past SHSAT handbooks. So try all these. There is slight variations, but it's almost always exactly this. If there was ever a problem where you could game the SHSAT, this is the question. Although you can't really game the SHSAT, but this is pretty much guaranteed to be on it. And once you know how to do it, you can do them all. The only difference is, like in another twisted example, they may give you the 40 and the 28 and ask you to calculate either the 8, the 5, the 7, or the 4. It's still all the same thing. You still get the sum of all the things. Do your division, do your multiplication, whatever it happens to be. All right? Okay, 99. I'm going to pop that out. 99. Lillian bought enough oranges to fill 4 bags each, so I'm cool. I stop. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Each bag contains 8 oranges. Wait a second. Does somebody have a question about that? By doing each one individual, which question? That one or the previous one? I'm not sure which question you mean. Yeah, remember, because this test is timed, your goal is to do shortcuts as much as possible, which means your numeracy, your number fluidity, your no hesitation math has to be totally there. Okay? So far, I'm going to process this like it's an illustration. I have 4 bags with 8 oranges each. I don't know what the question is yet, but I know I have 32 oranges. Okay? The total cost was $11.52. At that rate, which rate? What do you mean at that rate? Okay? It means 32 oranges cost $11.52. Okay? We can also look at this a different way, which is that it cost $11.52 for 30. I'm going to cross that to make sure let me just get rid of that. 32 oranges, right? Both of these are true. Both of these are rates. It's 32 oranges per $11.52 or $11.52 per 32 oranges. They're both rates. The previous one. Yeah, you gotta once you see the flow of it, that it'll always work that way. Okay? And that kind of problem is on all standardized tests, not just SHSAT. So when you guys eventually do the PSAT and the SAT or any other admissions tests, it's probably going to appear there in some form or another. And it's almost always about tests or scores, but it doesn't have to be. It could be about something else. Just remember when you're reading it to clue in, is this kind of that average problem that deals with scores, and it just works the same way. All right. So at that rate, how much would Liam pay for 42 oranges? So really what we're trying to do is set up a proportion. X is to 42. All right. So this is kind of nasty math. There's a couple ways to do this again. We can do the cross product. So we get 11.52 times 42 equals 32x. And then when we divide that, we're going to get 11.52 times 42 over 32 equals x. All right, this is nasty no matter how you slice it. We can trivialize it slightly. Divide 2 into here, we get 16. Divide 2 into there, we get 21. We're still going to have to do a nasty bunch of math here. All right. So is everybody good with setting the problem up to this point? You could have also taken this here by itself and figured out the price per orange. The price per orange, right? That's still a rate. So they're talking about at that rate. Which rate? $11.52 for 32 oranges. All right. So you could have done that as well. Okay, I believe when you do 11.52 divided by that, you get 36 cents. Now that you know the rate, you could have multiplied that now by 42. So you would get 42 times 36. All right. This turns out to be the same problem, just you comboed the step of doing this and this all in one shot. That's what's going on there. It's one shot. So you have two different ways to do it. In fact, I would suggest you do both ways on the actual test, if this was an example. I'm of the thinking where when you're on a problem and you understand it well enough, do your solution, and then at the same time do it a totally alternate way, and then you don't need to come back to the problem. All right? So that's 99. Okay, 100 is really just a simple fraction. It's probably easier to write it like this: 3.6 over 0.018. Okay, so it's easier to get rid of decimal points in problems. So what I'm going to do is move this over 1, this over 1, move this over 1, add a 0, move this over 1, add a 0. So now we have, if it's not obvious to you, we have 3600 over 18. Okay, that's 18 goes into this twice, and our answer is 200. Right? Is everybody good with that? So this is a problem where you want to gain your time back. If you spend too much time on another problem, whether you solved it or not, this is the problem where you want to gain your time back because it's a fast one. It's that fast. Okay? What you don't want to do is this. Okay, that gets funky, but you can still do it the same way. If I move this one, I move that one. If I move this one, I add a 0. If I move this one, I add a 0. What do I end up? 18 goes into 3600. Okay, you still get 200. Okay, I prefer doing it like this. Okay, and some of you can actually do this in your head. The problem with doing it in your head is you might end up with the answer. You can see the 2, but you get lost and you think the answer is 20. So it's always worth putting your stuff down on paper and actually solving it. All right? Don't solve these problems in your head. This is a silver plate question. So that's at least 4 points you're going to throw away by saying the answer is 20. Okay? If you think the answer is E or F, I don't know where you're getting that from. So I'm not sure even how they concluded that. In fact, one of them was probably doing 0.018 over 3.6, which is completely wrong because the division sign's right there. So, right? Is everybody good with that? Don't goof this one up. And if you're getting over 40 questions correct, you want this one because that's going to be worth maybe 6 points for you and no longer 4 points. So don't throw away the silver plate questions. I can finish the math section in 40 minutes and get at least 50 right. Great, great. That's good. And that's what you want to do. So your numeracy and proficiency is really up there. You want that proudness, you want that astuteness, you want to just go and you want to feel it. Okay? Just don't make silly errors. And obviously he's getting 50 right. He's not making silly errors. Okay? Mostly about understanding the question. Right. Some of these, let's take this question right here. This is not in any shape or form a hard question. It's not even really officially a SHSAT question, even though it's here. So remember that part of the job of the test is to weigh you down and do other stuff like that too. Okay, 101. My screen has got some stuff on it here. Okay, let me see. A tank with a 500-gallon capacity. So I'm going to try to visualize this. There's a tank or a vat or whatever. It can handle 500 gallons. Okay. It currently contains 75. So let's see, if this is 500, that's about 250. I'm going to say it's about right there. It's not really important whether you're doing it to scale or not. So there's 75 gallons in there, okay? An additional water is poured into the tank at a rate of 5 gallons per minute. After 45 minutes of adding water, what percent is the capacity? So how much water did I add? If it's 5 gallons per minute, right? I'm just going to do a multiplication there. There's 45 minutes, so I get 225 extra gallons. So that might bring me about up to here. So I add that in, which means so far my total is that I've added 300 gallons into it. So they're asking, and they, by the way, they also add this, that the tank is not leaking. Because you could argue, how do you know if the tank has a leak? And by the way, some of these problems are worded that way, that even though it's filling up at 5 gallons a minute, they might say there's a leak where it's leaking 1 gallon a minute, okay? If that's true, after 45 minutes, that would have been 4 times 45, okay? But that's not our example, right? If it said it was leaking a gallon a minute after 45 minutes, it would have lost 45 gallons, all right? And you could just do that by saying 4 times 45. Okay, in any event, we have 300 out of 500. Okay, we can throw away the zeros, and 3/5 is, that was 100, then this is 60. So we talked about before, something percent means the number over 100, so that would give us C. All right, is everybody cool on this one? Some kids have a problem with various parts of it. Some kids get this wrong, some kids get the visualization wrong, some kids do the multiplication wrong. So again, this is not terribly hard, but there's about 5 parts to it that you have to keep track of. Right. You guys there. You guys are spot on. Let me take a sip of something here. Anybody have any questions about it? There's 7 people in the lobby. If anybody's confused at all about any of these, just holler out. That's what we're here for. That's what we're doing in this session. Okay, 102. Misha wants to use ribbon to make 2 straps for her backpack. So I'm done with that. That makes sense. The ribbon costs $5 a yard. Cool. I don't know what to do with this number yet. I don't know what to do with the $5 yet. Because all I know is she has 2 straps. I don't know how long they are. All right? And this is what I'm thinking as I'm reading problems. I'm trying to understand what they told me. And I'm also in my head, I ask myself questions. I do this in the Ela Passage as well. As I'm reading the passage, I'm trying to follow along with the story, but I'm also asking myself, like, what's going to come next? And what does this mean? Why did the author say that? And hopefully when that pops in my head, the author answers that for me right away, okay? So, and by the way, I look at some of the ELA questions as if they're math questions. I also look at some of these as if they're English little tiny English passages. Okay, so there's a dual direction going back and forth here. Remember, if you can't read the problem, which is reading comprehension, then you can't solve it either. All right. So in any event, we have 2 straps. There's $5 a yard of a ribbon. Each strap requires 1 1/4 yards of ribbon. Okay, so that means to me, if I have 2 straps, and each one needs 1 1/4 yards of ribbon, therefore I need what? I need 2 1/2 yards. My tablet's not writing this. I don't know why. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? If there's two straps that are each this long, it's 1 1/4. Ah, come on. Plus 1 1/4 equals 2 2/4. And that's equal to 2 1/2. Okay. How much will she pay for the ribbon? So if it's $5 a yard, and there's 2.5 yards, then we just do that multiplication. 5 times 2 is 10, and 5 times 5, right, 0.5 gives us 2 1/2, so we're going to end up with 12.5. Okay, which would, in dollars and cents, would be H. Okay, the handbook presents a slightly different way of doing it. If I remember this problem, let me show you. Yeah, the handbook takes the price. Let me turn on notations on this. Give me 1 second. Anybody have questions about this while I'm waiting for the machine to catch up with me here? Or any other SHSAT questions? You guys can be throwing them out at any time. So they figured out the price per strap first. This is the price per strap. Okay, and then they just, if that was $6.25 and there was 2 of them, they just doubled it. All right, so that's all that's going on there. It's the same thing. At the end of the day, we have to do 5 times 2 times 1.25. I just did it in a different order, right? If we think of the associative property, if I have A times B times C, it doesn't matter if I do this first and that second, or B times C first and then times A of that, right? So that's all that's going on there in their solution. Okay, 103. And let me bring that back down because it's too big. So a lot of students argue with me about whether the SHSAT has coordinate geometry on it. They only insist grade 9 SHSAT has it. You're showing right here, this is grade 8. It has coordinate geometry on it, okay? So a graph shows the proportional relationship between the number of test questions a student gets X, okay? So in what they're showing us here, if we draw a table of X and Y, okay, they're telling us that we have 1 and 5/4, right? Because it's always X comma Y. X is the number of test questions a student gets. So this is the number of questions, okay? And Y is the score. So we're just trying to put this down to emphasize that we're reading the sentence and that we're understanding what it's telling us. We're also we're always trying to visually represent these things, okay? So we're up to here. The ordered pair 1, 5 is on the graph, okay? What does the Y coordinate of the ordered pair represent in the relationship? So they're asking, what does this represent? Okay, the obvious answer is it represents the score, right? So what does that mean, though? All right, some people are popping out answers. H and B. Okay, the previous one. Okay. So let's look at it. So these answers are words and numbers. A, the test will last 1 1/4 hours. No, this was about the number of questions and the score. Those are the only two things going on here. So there's no number of hours here. All right, so it's not A. Each test question is worth 1 1/4 point. If one question is worth 5/4, that's the score. So how do we do that? How do we make that interpretation to go to B? It looks like it's possible. So we're going to put a maybe there. I don't know how to do it yet, right? An average student can answer 5 questions in 4 minutes. Nope, minutes were never talked about, so it's not C. D, a student who answers 5 questions correctly will answer 4 points. So I think they're trying to use the fraction here for D, 5/4, but nothing in that indicates that to it, so it's not D. So I'm left with B as my best answer, and I don't know why, right? Here's the answer why. This word proportional. We have a proportional relationship. Normally, your equation of a line is y equals mx plus b, okay? When it's proportional, there's basically no b. So what in our case, our equation is y equals 5/4 of x. All right? So if x is 1, which is the example they gave here, then y is 5/4. So it turns out that that means if x was 2, that y would be 10/4. So that means every question is worth 1 1/4 points. And if we were to graph it, it would look something like that. Okay, I did that freehand, but that's what we're dealing there. And it goes through 0. Because if we had no questions, then you have no points. So that matches as well. Okay, and technically this part here doesn't exist. Because you can't have negative questions. So technically it's only in this quadrant here is what the line is. The line only appears right there. In fact, it's a line segment then. It starts at 0 and it goes this way. It's a ray then. Okay, it goes into infinity. All right, is everybody good on that one? Give me 1 second. I'm getting some messages here. All right, let's see if we're still live. Yes, we still seem to be live. All right, we're pacing pretty good at 48 minutes. Let's see, what question number are we up to? Because we're going to do one more of these, I think, still. Where's 104? Okay, so in a survey of 200 adults in a town, 45 reported that reading the online version of this bulletin the previous day. So 200 people. Of 200, 45 reported. People reported. Okay, so that's our ratio. If 25,000 adults, and I'm writing this even though I got this far, because I almost know that's what's going to happen here. Okay, you get used to these problems, and you guys should also be used to them at this point. That this is setting up a ratio. That's what happened so far here. And that's what this is here. That's a ratio. Okay, if 25,000 adults live there, so the top was the P, 25,000 lived in it. What is the best estimate of the number who read? So the denominator was the number read. So we're just going to call that R maybe. So now what we have is a proportion. We have 200 is to 45 as 25,000 is to R. We do the cross product, right? We can get 200R equals 45 times 25,000, right? We divide both sides by 200, and this is what we get. We can get rid of these 2 zeros here, get rid of these 2 zeros here. So we have 45 times 250 over 2. All right? It asks us for an estimate. We don't need to get the exact number, so remember that, guys? All right. So here's what I'm going to do. You guys should actually do the actual full math. When you do the full math, you're going to get E. Okay. I'm going to make an estimate, not because this says estimate. I'm making an estimate because I'm going to do an alternate solution. Okay. So I have about, if this is about 50, so 50 divided by 2 is 25. So I have 25 times 25, and that's normally 625. You guys should know all your perfect squares. Now, since I use 50 here, my answer has to be less than that. So the only one that's less than that, if you don't look at these zeros here, is the 560. Okay, 9,000 is too much. 900 in this case, because we're trying to look for that. So in a way, you could solve this without actually needing to do this whole calculation. All right? Just by using our math prowess. We can simplify 200 over 45. Yeah, we can do that too. We can divide it by 5, and this becomes 9, and this becomes 40. Okay? So we could have gotten 40 R equals 25,000 times 9, and then we divide both sides by 40, get rid of that, throw this away, throw that away. So now we have a similar thing. We could do it one more time. That's a 2, and that's 125, 1250. If you notice, we still end up with the same problem. So we still have to solve it. The math is still the same at the bottom. So, and that's another way to do it. That's a good point. In other words, sometimes it's worth holding off the numbers to see what cancels out at the end, and sometimes it's worth doing the cancel out right at the beginning. In this problem, it became a wash. It was pretty equal, but there's other problems where that works to your benefit. Generally speaking, you'll want to avoid large numbers like this. I kept it 200 because I noticed it was 2 times 100. Right? 200 is the same as 2 times 100. And often 100 is a good number to cancel out. And we know it because we can get rid of those 2 zeros here. So that's why when I see something that's a multiple of 10 or a multiple of 100, normally I keep it around to the end. Can we do an ELA passage? No, we're going through this sequentially. We already did the ELA passages. Okay, if you want to do an ELA passage, we can do it maybe after all this, but we already did those. So, not doing that. We're not doing that! All right, so we're 104, that was 104. 105. Okay, if you notice, there's another proportion problem. So there's lots of ratios and proportions going on. And by the way, when we set this up here, it went from a ratio, this here is a ratio, and the whole thing here is the proportion, right? When we're comparing the two ratios. Yeah, if you go, what's a good answer ratio to get into Bronx Science? Give me 1 second. That I can answer in 2 seconds here. Let's see. 1 second. You probably need minimum 40. That's the way it's looking. Minimum 40. So where are we up to? We did 104, 105, and I think at the end of this page we're going to stop, so that we have a few more. I'll do a few more tomorrow. A hiker plans on hiking 17 miles in 3 days. Okay. Which equation describes a relationship between the number of days hiked, x, so that's, we're setting up a proportion, to the number of miles traveled, y, right? Because we have miles per days. Y is miles, X is days. So then we just do a cross product, right? And we end up with Y equals 17 over 3 times X, okay, which turns out to be C. So the confusing part was to make sure you did miles to days on both of them, okay? There was an alternate way to do this, was that if it was 17 miles on 3 days, this will give you, if you actually solve it, the miles per day, right? If you actually did that, this is the miles per day. So if they're asking how many miles were traveled in X days, is that not 17 over 3 times X? Right? So you can solve this logically as well. Oh, yeah, you're definitely in then. Definitely in. You know that too. I think you keep asking me that as well. Okay, let me erase this stuff here because that was about the other problem. Does anybody have general questions why I'm erasing this? And this is going to be the last problem we do today anyway. So you guys should know what your pacing is by now. You should know your strategy. You should know what sections you're doing. You should know any weak areas you have left to do. Like what is a topic you avoided altogether? Now is probably worth the time to do that, especially if you're getting over 35 per section. Okay. You should have definitely taken a few practice tests. Some of you have taken too many practice tests. I normally think 6 or 7 is a good base to work with, and by then you should know basically what your problems are or not. Okay, so we're going to take this a sentence at a time and a phrase at a time. Carolyn walked 3 miles from her house to the library. We're here. So Carolyn's house is here. She walked 3 miles to the library here. Okay, this is 3 miles. Okay, and then 2.5 miles farther to the grocery store. So we don't know if she kept in a straight line or not. So that's the grocery store. Okay, this was 2.5. Okay, we don't know if it varied off from that point. Let me just maybe do this as a dotted line. So the grocery store might be over here. We're not sure. Let's see where the problem goes for us. And in some cases it may not matter. Okay. What is the answer ratio for high school applied of Lehman? Okay, give me 1 second. It's less than the other one was. I think it's what did I just say the other one was? Now you got me distracted from this problem. The other was 37. Let me just solve it now that my brain's stuck on that problem. I have software that does this, so I just feed it in. Lehman looks like you need 37, was it? Yeah, it looks like once you're passing 36 or so on, you might be clean with that. All right, let's go back to this problem. So she walked from her house to the library 3 miles, another 2.5 miles to the grocery store. Okay, returning home. So she's at the grocery store going back home. Okay, she stops at a friend's house after 1 2/3 of a mile. Okay, how many miles does she have left? So her home is here. She's not necessarily going to stop at the library coming home. So what they want to know is what is this here? What is, if we call that X? All right? Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me solve this because this is the last one we're going to do. So if she went 3 miles here and 2.5 miles here, that means her total is 5.5 miles or 5.5. Okay? If she returned back 1 2/3, that turns out to be the problem that we need to solve then. So we basically have 5.5 minus 1 2/3. Okay? Right from there, you know it's not H. Okay? And you also know it can't be G, because G is just too large. Okay? If you want, we can make this common denominators. So we're going to have 5 3/6 minus 1 4/6, right? And once you do those subtractions, I believe you're going to get E. Yes. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do this subtraction. 5 3/6 minus 1 4/6, right? So to do 4/6 from 3/6, we have to borrow 6/6. So we're going to borrow from the 5 and make it a 4. If we add 6/6 here, we get 9/6, right? So 9/6 minus 4/6 now is 5/6, and then 4 minus 1 is 3. So that gives us that there. All right. The other way to look at it was that if we have 5 3/6 minus 1 4/6, right? To get to 2 from here, I go 2/6. Okay, and then I have 3, 4, 5, and then 3 more sixths here. So I have 3/6. So I'm going to add those 3 together. So this 3, that's that. And then 3/6 plus 2/6 gives me 5/6. Okay. One actually does borrowing over here, and the other is just building up, working from one of the points to the other. Right? I went from 1 4/6. I tried to get to 2. That's where I got that from. Then I'm at 2. I go 3, 4, 5. Now I'm at 5. How do we get from 5 to 5 3/6? By adding 3/6. So that's what I did there. All right. All right. So now let me focus on your guys' questions just to double check it. Yeah, 35 is too small. 36, 36. Still not there. 37, 37. 37, 37 is your minimum score on average that will get you in. So normally, because there's field questions, you want to add at least 3 per section. So you're looking at 40 there as well. All right. For Bronx Science, what did I say Bronx Science was a minute ago? Bronx Science. Science would be like 42 and above. Okay. Since I'm in 9th grade, what's a good answer ratio that will get me into Brooklyn Tech or Staten Island? So the normal rule of thumb is to take the other minimum. Okay, let me calculate that. So normally tech, I think, needs about 33 minimum. Let me just run this through the program. 32, 33, 34. In fact, let me do this. Let me show you what I'm doing. So this is averaging I'm doing right now. And let me move this out of the way. I have something blocking my screen too. So if you're asking about tech, I'm trying to shoot for this line here. In particular, this line actually. I want a little flame to appear there. So I'm at 34 per each. If I go 35, okay, I finally got a flame on tech. So 35 on average in both sections is your absolute minimum score that you want, okay? Normally we bump it up a few from there, at least 3 per section. So on tech, you want to be getting at least 38 on each section. In grade 8, minimum, okay? Okay, now for 9, what we normally do is your average there would have been 512 if you did 35 per. So the average rule of thumb is to add 50 points to your grade, and that will be your best shot at a grade 9 score. Okay? So if I have 510 or whatever and I add 50, I'm trying to look for 560 now. All right? So I'm going to plug in some numbers till I get a score of 560. So I'm going to think, is it 39? No, I'm not there yet. Let me try 43. Okay, I passed 560 there, and we're looking at this line here. Okay, so let's try 41. Okay, we're a little past 560 there. Okay, so let's try. Wait, I typed that wrong. So 41 is 560 exactly. So for SHSAT 9, you want 41 minimum on each section. And again, if we add the field questions in, you want minimum 44 in each section. Is a good way to look at it, okay? So Cassie, you good with that? Before I move away and look at STI now? So somebody make a note that I'm talking about 41 for tech. 44 minimum for tech. So for STI, let's see here, what do we have? STI never got there, so let's do 43. That brings you into there. 42. And let me just make sure 41 didn't work. All right, so 42. So for STI, you're looking at 45 minimum per section for grade 8. Okay, 45 minimum for grade 8 per section on STI is a good kind of thing. And anything above that gives you the wiggle room you need, right? So we're talking about minimums here. Anything above that gives you the wiggle room. The minimum doesn't mean you're getting in, and it doesn't mean you are. It doesn't mean you are or aren't, because if I preface this all by saying on average, there's scores that happen that don't work that way, right? Because for instance, if we come up to here where it was 42, that indicates it's a score of 84. But 84 can happen a lot of different ways. You can get all 57 correct and only 30, right? So there's this balance that happens back and forth. So some of the numbers don't work and some do. So that's why I talk about it on average, all right? So anyway, your STI would be 45 minimum, okay? Which means you really want to be getting 50 minimum. Same for Cassie when I mentioned, what did I mention, 38 for tech or whatever? You want to be busting 40 then, just so you have the wiggle room for it, all right? All right, do you guys have any other particular questions or general ones as well? You got a few days, your anxiety levels are probably popping. I'm going to hopefully do a pep talk for you guys on Wednesday. Tuesday. Anybody who hasn't smashed the like button is evil. Okay? Are these practice tests based on previous tests? No, not necessarily. I don't think they mix the practice tests with the real tests. They do recycle questions, though. So if you look through some of the, if you go to my website, GregsTutoringNYC.com, I have links to about a dozen past websites, okay? A dozen past handbooks, sorry. If you notice, if you go through all the problems in them, there's repetition. I also understand they do that on the real test. They will repeat a question a couple of years later sometimes. But nobody ever gets access to the actual real test. So are these practice tests based on previous tests? No, they're not. They're different. They're a different set of questions. They're obviously connected. They're related, but they're not exactly the same questions. All right. What else you guys got to throw at me? Any advice for the upcoming test? Don't smoke. Yeah, that's what we just covered. Everything we just covered is advice. And I have hundreds of hours of videos with hundreds of videos. Everything we're talking about is advice. Just at this point, keep yourselves calm. Don't do anything silly so that you can't make the test day. You want to just eat right, sleep right, exercise right. Just chill, be chill for the next few days. Don't be involved in any major events. Don't get yourself in trouble in any way, right? So, and just maintain your status quos. Are the practice tests usually easier than the real tests? Yes, that's my belief. I've talked to a lot of kids over a lot of years, and that seems to be the flow. There's some kids who think that the actual test day is easier. Some think it's harder, but the majority feel it's harder. Remember, there's multiple forms of the test on test day as well. So some kids actually will get harder to test than others. On average, they statistically average them out, so they're basically all equal, statistically at least. But the majority of kids don't even get to finish it on test day. So you have to think of that too. Most kids do not finish the test on test day. And by most, I don't mean a lot. I mean over the majority. Over the majority never finish the test. Okay, what else you guys got to say? What else? Otherwise, we'll call it a day. Let me stop that share. Yeah, I have software that I wrote myself, which grades the SHSAT and scores it, and that's only one part of it. That's a plug-in to it that you saw. So I can run it by hand if I want, and also my scoring program calls that other program, and it does a whole bunch of heuristics and analysis on your actual test sheet. Once you do your bubble sheet, I rip it to shreds, and it does various analysis that isn't always obvious when you're just looking at the bubble sheet by itself. If we don't finish it, do we just circle B? I guess that's better than anything. Or A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. There's you just got to do what you got to do at that point. Okay. My math is my strong suit. However, Ela is weak. Do you still believe that I can get into Brooklyn Tech? I don't know what strong or weak means. I just gave you guys some of the numbers. So for tech, you really need to be getting the 37 or above or whatever I just said. If not, then we'd have to work through that. You can email me and we can talk about it as well. Or we could do a session where we actually analyze your scores, right? We could do a private session where you analyze your scores. Yeah, I know I won't be able to finish. Right, so that's why your strategy sometimes is to do the easy test first. I have huge time management issues. How do I fix that? You got to do the easy test first. You got to break it down. There are different things you can do, like at the bottom of every page, put T or something, a T circled at the bottom of every page, which means you're worried about time. So it means at the end of every page, as you turn a page, you're going to see T, and it reminds yourself to do that. So when the proctor says the test is starting, run through the whole test and just write at the bottom of a page a T with a circle around it. Maybe put it at the edges, right? So that when your hand is turning it, you're going to see it, and just it makes a physical note to actually look for that, right? That kind of a thing. Also, you guys should bubble sheet that way too. That's another way to patient control of your time. Don't bubble sheet every page or every problem. Just bubble sheet when you turn a page. Or for ELA, only bubble sheet for one passage at a time. So you can save a couple minutes at the end of the test by doing stuff like that. Well, it's a hard, gruesome test, guys. You guys have to realize that. So, and part of your doing your, so a lot of you took a lot of practice tests, but you only practice problems. You never practice your pacing. So that's important to practice too. Where when I do my own students, my original goal for, let's say I tutor a kid for 4 months, my original goal for the first 2 months is only to focus on getting your problems right. I don't care how long you take to get the problem. Just get it right at the end, right? And then we start inching along. And as they become more confident in problem solving, their pacing is going to increase just psychologically as well. And then we try to focus on, like, we split it into 5 major sections: Rev A, Rev B, reading comprehension, grid-ins, and multiple choice, and we work on those. Which of those can you get through the best? So then we time each section. We time the whole thing, and then, like I tell them, if they took 4 hours, now you have to do it in 3 hours and 45 minutes. Now you have to do it in 3.5 hours. Now you have to do it in 3 hours and 15 minutes, and so on. All right. There's going to be a clock. Yes, there's going to be a clock, but don't use it. Do not use the wall clock. Bring your own watch. That you should be using that watch for all your practice tests as well. Because the clock may not have the right time on it. And some classrooms have clocks that don't work at all. All right? The teacher might write every 15 minutes on the board, but you should be in control of your own time. Okay? You can also pace it too, that if you kind of make a line in the sand that each section is going to be 90 minutes, then if you're 2.5 hours into just the math section, you know you took too long. All right. You could also do your pacing of your timing just by skipping stuff. Like if you know you'll do poorly on poetry, as soon as you see a poem, just skip it. Do that last. If you know you're really bad at exponents, then just skip that right away. Don't waste even 10 seconds. Just immediately skip it. Okay. Because 8th graders are taking it in their school. That's right. Are there going to be 6 passages for the comprehension? Nobody knows. Here's my theory. My theory is they're going to take away probably 2 passages, if not 1, and replace it by extending the Rev A and Rev B section. And most likely by extending the Rev A section. So I believe they're going to add 9 more grammar questions, is my guess, is what's going to happen. And that means there'll be at least one less passage. Okay? That's just my theory. You guys are going to have to tell me after Wednesday. Okay? What materials do we need to bring to the testing site? Okay, give me 1 second. Let me see if I still have this on my machine. Yes, I do. Okay, let me load a file up here. And let me share my screen with you guys. Okay, can you guys hear that? Oh, wait, you got that on it. Oh, you guys couldn't see the result thing before, could you? Sorry, I loaded it into the wrong screen. Okay, let me send out a link to you guys too. Give me 1 second so I can find it. Okay, I'm going to send you a link to what I'm showing on the screen. Okay, that's the link that what's on the screen right now. So what you want to bring with you is your ticket. Okay, this controversy about whether you actually need to have it or not. You don't technically need to have it, but you should bring it with you. You should be bringing at least one mask. Okay, you should have your ID. Some of you guys never got your IDs. Okay, you should have a plan B about how you're getting to the school, and you cannot show up late. Okay, bring money with you for no other reason, because you should always have money with you. If you wear glasses, bring your glasses. If you take medication, bring your medication and take it just before you go in, or at least in the morning. Okay, you should have pencils. You should have a Staedtler white eraser. Okay, do you guys have that? If not, you should bring it with you. You should also bring a bottle of water and easy snacks. This depends on the proctor. Some proctors will make you take the label off your water so that you don't have answers written on it. Same with your snacks. If you have a non-messy snack, like Tic Tacs or a protein bar without chocolate in it, then some of them will let you open that up on your desk, or a piece of gum, right? Some of you guys like gum. So there's stuff like that. Okay, wait a second. I missed some of you guys' messages here. Yeah, I'm gonna do a stream after the test as well, guys. So there'll be a forum to do that as well. They're gonna give in 24 hours. Okay, right? If you want, you can bring highlighters or colored pencils. Okay. Wear multiple layers of clothing. So if you're too hot and you put hoodies and sweaters on, you can take them off. And if you're too cold, you can put the sweater and hoodie back on. Okay. Bring a dumb watch. You're not allowed to have a smart watch. Okay. So any watch that even looks like it's smart, they're not going to let you have either. All right. No other technology is involved, and you're allowed to. They'll just make you put it under your desk or whatever. Okay. Some people bring a slant board. You don't need that. Some bring a pencil grip. You don't need that. Some people bring a magnifying glass. You don't need that. Right. So don't even bother there. Get your normal sleep. Don't drink coffee unless you normally do. Eat a good breakfast. Don't sugar up that day. That's not the day to sugar up, because you're going to get a sugar crash halfway through the test. And that's worse than if you didn't even have breakfast, okay? And arrange how you're meeting somebody afterwards, okay? And your job when you get there is to go to the bathroom. And then plan for a relaxing day after the test. Yay! Okay? So that's pretty much a good summary. So the main thing really is your tickets, right? Your glasses, if you wear glasses, because otherwise you're screwed, right? And yourself. That's really the main thing. You may want to queue up your an electronic link to your ticket just in case. A benefit you're going to have this year for at least the 8th graders is that you're taking it at your school so they know who you are, right? Previous years you had to go to other schools. And they reinforced that you needed your ID. And if you can get your paper signed, right, your ticket paper should normally be signed. So I'm a little confused about why they're saying it's not actually required. Okay, so normally it has to be signed by you and your guardian, especially if you have an IEP or 504. Okay, but in that case, you're not taking it on Wednesday. You're taking it on February 10th, I believe. All right. Any other questions? Right. Snacks in general are not allowed, but some practice will let you leave open, like unopened gum or something like that. It has to be super simple snack. All right. But in any event, bring the snack, even if you're not allowed to use it. Just keep it in your bag because you guys are going to be exhausted right after the test. Even if you're going to go out to eat with your family or something or whatever, just have something to pump up your sugar level and so on, because you're going to be totally wiped out. Right, unless it's before or after. And some kids who are taking it with an IEP and getting extended time, they will have a break, a timed break, where the test is put aside, and they will be allowed to have a snack during that point. But they're not going to be with the test paper at that point. So, all right, are we good? Okay, one more question, and then we'll call it a day. No more questions? That's good too. All right, you guys. Hopefully everybody has a good day, and this will finally be over with. All right, bye. Peace out, everybody. Have a great day.